The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear, and the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist, but we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees, even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you within a cannon shot of the hallowed fields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us. First, let me state that Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation, the channel, is made possible by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. Now, Super Chat donations are essential for us to continue offering you this unique content, and your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So, tonight's guest is Kelly Butterfly. She's an author, editor, and publisher for Rainbow Butterfly Publications and the Sasquatch Message to Humanity channel book series. She is in service to others as a public speaker, Rainbow Reiki Practitioner, and marketing specialist. Since 2012, Kelly has been active in communication with multidimensional beings such as star elders, Sasquatch people, inner earth beings, ancestors, and nature spirits. She has learned and practiced sacred ways of divine sources and several Native American elders and shamans. In 2019, Kelly founded the Children of Earth Coalition, an alliance of worldwide community members committed to the regeneration of Earth and all living beings. The COEC's goal is to develop spirit and nature-based educational programs, events, and holistic healing centers. So, Kelly, thank you for joining me this evening.
Yes, thank you, Lon. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I had been looking over what you have done. I put it this way: I understand some of it, and some of it I don't. I kind of, I'm very in tune with multidimensional beings myself. Even as far as working with cryptids and extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, all this kind of ties in. But tell us a bit about how you get started with this and why has it grown to the point where you are right now?
Yes, well, it's really been kind of a lifelong contact and connection that I've had. Although I wasn't that sure of things, I didn't have quite that much clarity about it, several years ago or when I was younger. I just knew that I was sensitive to spirits, and I didn't know, quite what that meant. When I was a kid, the only way that you can really relate to that is ghosts. That's what I thought of. And so I knew that I could sense ghosts, and I really didn't want much to do with it. So I kind of, for a while, I turned those abilities off. It was something I couldn't understand. And so it's something I really didn't want to deal with. And so for many years, I didn't feel this stronger connection. But then as a older teenager or young adult is when some of that started to come back to me, just having the awareness of the different realms and dimensions, different beings around me, even though I couldn't quite explain it. It's just this feeling of like I'm being watched, or I know I'm being guided in some kind of way. And so in what year was that? Around 2008 actually is when things started to change for me a little bit. I was 28 years old at the time. And that's when a few people close to me passed away, actually, a few young people close to me. And so the whole emotional and the grieving factor of all of that too. But because I knew these people, I was really familiar with their souls and who they were, since they had crossed over and they were making contact with me. And I couldn't deny it. I knew exactly what I was experiencing. And so I just kind of surrendered that fear and allowed it. And so much more was able to open for me once I just kind of accepted and allowed that. And so fast forward a couple years, and I was pregnant with my son. And during that time, more was opening up for me, just psychic gifts and abilities and dreams and much more coming to me, other spirits, things like that. So I was becoming much more familiar with it. And there was just this knowing, I guess you could say, when it comes to psychic gifts, just things that I knew through dreams that were not dreams. They were just so real that I knew they were really something taking place. These are conversations, these are activities or things that I am really doing out of body. And so it after that, I'd say by 2012 is when I was on, I guess you could say, my spiritual awakening journey. I was doing a lot of research into my own family lineage, my son's family lineage, especially because there's a lot of Native American, ancestral ties and things like that. And so I was really kind of immersed in the whole Native American culture, and I was learning their spirituality, their way of life, and honoring the earth and using all of the resources available to us. And and because I was already sensitive with spirits, I was learning more about communication with nature and even communicating with my own body more than most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to ourselves. And so by the end of 2012, I was spending also a lot of time in the woods. I lived in Arkansas at this time, in the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was spending a lot of time in the forest there. And increasingly more and more, I felt this connection with the Sasquatch, or I knew that they were around. I would hear them, gigantic footsteps following me, or you could feel the ground shaking almost when they're walking and there's nobody behind you, or pine cones being thrown in your direction. They're not dropping from the trees. Different things like that. Even hearing them breathing, or getting this whiff of this overwhelming smell that I just knew was them, but they weren't around. I couldn't understand, what I'm experiencing here. Like, I know they're there, but why aren't they here? And so at the end of 2012, that's when I really got a lot of clarity and really connected with them. And it was the time to connect. I was already communicating with them telepathically, without knowing that I was, because I was thinking about them, wanting to know more all the time. And I connected with this stranger on Facebook. He calls himself Gray Wolf. And I connected with this person that I think we connected through a group of Native American spirituality, right? And so I connect with this guy, and he sends me a message. I have no idea who he is. And this message he sends me says, "I walk with Sasquatch." And I was like, ooh, my interest was piqued. And I said, well, don't we all? You know? And And he goes, no, I mean, like, really, I communicate with them. I walk with them. They're my brothers. And I was just like, tell me more, you know? And I was probably driving him nuts because I'm asking him all these questions about what he's experiencing. And he goes, hey, you know, you want to learn more, you need to look into, you know, a few different authors' books, and go to this website. Which was, you know, the Sasquatch People. And I ordered that book. I looked at that website, and it put so much, it answered so many questions that I already had. And it was this, once again, this knowing, this deep knowing that this is like the information that I've been waiting for. And I couldn't explain it, but I also knew that finding this information was like the first day of the rest of my life, if you know what I mean. It was just like, this is completely life changing for me. And so at around the same time, I say it was like a spiritual awakening, but it was really more of a, what do they call it? Like a quickening, because it happened very quickly. And one evening in December 2012, I went to bed, and just the instant that I laid down in the bed, I had an experience where there was a UFO outside of my window, outside of my bedroom, and I could see the light and I could hear the hum, but I couldn't get out of bed to go and check it out. I wanted to go see it, and I couldn't. I was like basically frozen to the bed, and I couldn't get up. And so I'm wondering, well, you know, what's going on? I want to get up and see it. And then I knew, I was like, oh, well, okay, so this is a, you know, an alien spaceship outside. And obviously I'm not able to get up for whatever reason, that whatever their intentions are. You know, and then to verify it too, because I was still like skeptical of, well, maybe I'm experiencing something else. And a picture frame rattled off of the TV that was in the room. And so I knew then it fell onto the floor. And so that was, you know, kind of like my physical evidence that, okay, I'm not imagining this. And so that was my first telepathic encounter that I had, that I was aware of, or, you know, at least that I can remember very well. And there was a little man in the room. He looked very human like. He was an ET. I feel like he's Andromedan. I'm not sure of that for sure, but he told me to call him Jai. And he looks very human, except his head is much bigger, kind of bulbous, and his clothes were strange. It really reminded me of like an alien ET doctor kind of thing. Like he had a high collar, and it's you know, it was either white or it was like almost kind of glistening looking. And so anyway, I was very confident that this was not a human in the room, that I'm being visited by a star person. And so I'm nervous at the same time, you know, but I'm also being very calmly reassured that everything is okay, and that everything's going to be okay, and that this is an experience that I'm having, that I've been waiting for, that's going to progress me, move me forward, that's for the betterment of humanity, all kinds of different things. And I felt the presence also of a Sasquatch at the end of my bed. And while Jai was communicating, you know, some things to me, the Sasquatch, I didn't hear any words, but I felt this overwhelming love, and like a nurturing energy. It felt like, you know, your grandmother holding your hand, you know, or something like that when you're sick, or, you know, being there with her energetic bowl of soup there to help me. And so while it was potentially a scary situation, the love that I felt, and the reassurance that I felt, and just this knowing that like this was a time that I've been waiting for, that really kind of trumped the fear. But I did feel some pain, some sensations that I assumed, that they were harvesting some eggs or some DNA from me. And that's what I was really feeling. And so that, like I said, that was my assumption, especially with what they're telling me, how this is better, for the betterment of humanity and things like that. And so actually, to fast forward, come to find out a year later, unbeknownst to me, I was actually like meditating a year later after this, because this event was so life changing for me that I was having kind of a ceremonial meditation to give thanks for that incident a year prior. And in that meditation, the beings came to me and told me that at that time, a year ago, that they had also healed me of cervical cancer that I was unaware of that I had. So I was, that much more gracious. Now that they were also, I'm also aware that I'm part of like a hybrid program, that my DNA is used for different things. And so that was also a part of it, but I had no idea that, there was also like a really massive healing going on at the time. So that was really my first, the biggest, really life-changing thing that thrust me into this whole world of everything that I wasn't in before. And I started working much more closely with the Sasquatch really pretty immediately afterwards. Within a few months, started really connecting with my guides as the Sasquatch. Um, their teachings that they have also follows quite a bit of what the Native American way of life and spirituality teaches. And so it was, really just a beautiful blend of all of that. But then, later on came more of the interdimensional teachings, the psychic teachings, and then the healing. So it's been quite a journey. And after, in 2015 and I was living in Washington by this time. And that's when I connected with Sunbo, True Brother. And I also connected with him on Facebook in a group that I had never even been in before, actually. It was like a really divine way to come together once again. But he was channeling a message from the Sasquatch, and he wrote it out, and it was the most beautiful thing that I had ever read. It just, I was just shaking with truth, and that love once again. And I knew that, I'm also like, well, how come I don't know who this person is, and this person doesn't know who I am, but he's writing this beautiful message from the Sasquatch that aligns with everything that I've, been putting out there, or helping to put out there in the last few years. And it was just, that was the time for us to connect. And so the Sasquatch really worked with him so that he could transcribe the rest of these messages. That the one that I read at the time was chapter 7 of the first book. And that's what I read. And he goes, well, hey, I wrote, 6 other channelings from them. And he sent that to me. And then after that, they just kept coming day after day after day. Or I think, sometimes it was several chapters a day even. And then there was book 2 as well. And so I felt guided by the Sasquatch as well to publish this. I didn't have any experience. My ex had self-published, or he had published, he had an Amazon account. And so I used his Amazon account to publish these books. And so that's basically that's how they got out there. It was a learning experience for me, but the Sasquatch were really like, hey, this needs to be done. And they're out there available for free too. So many people, at least like me, I like a book in my hand and something I can keep referencing. But they're also on the website. Yeah, there you go, sasquatchmessage.com. And you can read each book on there. they're listed under the books or under the series. So they can be read on there and then ordered through the website or on Amazon too. But they're and then the third book, actually, that one came out in 2018, and that was Sunbow and myself and several other. Let me see. I think there was 7 or 8 other authors that contributed in that book. And so the messages that the Sasquatch are sharing are just, they're so profound. That's why we put it out there for free as well, because the world needs to hear it. It's not just a book, and it's not really just, it is a series, of course, of, channeled messages that come through. And when I say channeled, a lot of people don't quite understand that, or how you receive something like that. And I'll say that, at least for me, people receive it differently. Sometimes you might hear voices, or you might receive big downloads of information. That's how I get it a lot. I'll receive big downloads of information, and then it's kind of like you have to translate it and disseminate it, translate it into words. And, it comes in the form of pictures, almost like you're watching a movie, and then it's your responsibility to write the script to that movie, So it's similar to that. But at other times, there's definite real guidance on the certain words to use, because even in some things that I've written, I'm kind of like, ooh, what is that word? I'm not familiar with it. Later I'll look it up and find out, oh, hey, that's a real word and it's appropriate for this. So that's great. But yeah, so that's been the journey so far.
Well, let me ask you this. We hear a lot about connections between cryptids, in particular Bigfoot, and extraterrestrials. Is there a strong connection? Do they exist in similar dimensions? And why does that affect us as well? Are we part of that as well?
Yeah, it certainly does affect us, and it affects them. But it's hard to say a similar dimension, because there's multiple dimensions,
When I say that, I mean, is there one dimension that they primarily exist in together?
Not necessary, in a sense. Although I should say that, like, it's more levels of density consciousness than it would be a dimension, as in a place. So many of the Sasquatch, though, it's a complicated question, because many Sasquatch are here in the 3D. They're in the earth realm. They're in the 3D. They have bodies. They eat, they poop, they walk around. And so they're very much in the 3D, but they do have, even the ones in this dimension have special gifts and abilities beyond what us humans are really able to tap into. And so they can still cloak themselves. They can still change their vibration. They can still shapeshift and do many things that we're not really able to do in the 3D. We potentially could. It would take a lot of practice, but so they can do those things in the 3D. The other dimensions are really, like I said, it's more of a state of consciousness that you're in, more than it is a place or a location, or like another realm parallel to ours. So they say, actually, that they're primarily in the 5th dimension. And what they mean by that is more of their state of consciousness. When you're in the 5th dimension, there's no need for physicality. So when we're in the 5th dimension, or walking, or in that space, it's more where we're at within our consciousness. And so the Sasquatch are, like many other beings, they have more access and a connection to this 5th dimension, because they don't necessarily need physical bodies. And they're also in this higher dimension and density where they have a higher knowledge and understanding. Like I said, it's a consciousness factor, but it's also, when I say consciousness, it's your known connection to different things. So like our star elders, we're all connected to the star elders. That's who created us. That's what we are all a part of. We're part of all of the races that have ever been. That's also why all of these different beings, all these different species and races from beyond are very interested in us, because humans contain the DNA of all these other races. And they're very vested in us because they have contributed DNA, they have contributed, and consciously, and things like that. And it certainly wouldn't be any stranger to this planet for a species or for a race to destroy itself and to destroy its planet. It's happened time and time again. And right now, all of these different star elders and many of these beings of a higher density, of a higher consciousness, are really reaching out to us and, trying to give us the nice little energetic slap across the face, the wake up call that you need to do something now to change this. If you don't want to destroy your race and your species, for humanity to live on, we have to change our consciousness. We have to raise collectively our vibration to a higher density, so that we're able to survive, because the way that our thinking is now, the way that we've been conditioned in our beliefs, and the way that we are controlled and imprisoned in this planet by the elite, by the powers that be, and things like that. All of this is consciousness factors. We Like the human race was designed to be forgetful. We're designed to be dependent on Earth and other beings and all these different resources. If you think about it, like pretty much every animal that you can think of is built to survive in its environment, except for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're all squishy and we need houses and we need vehicles to get around, and so a lot of it is so that we can remember our connection and remember our, if I can say, reliance, or, really just how we're related to the planet, because that's how we need to change our mentality. It's not just gaining more kindness and compassion for our fellow man and treating each other as equals, or seeing each other as equals. Once we start seeing each other as equals, we'll naturally start treating each other that way. But it's so many other factors, as well as taking care of the planet. And we as humans haven't been doing a very good job of that, but collectively we are starting to understand that. I mean, still you can look at individuals and see the good that they're doing for the planet, or you could look at individuals and see the bad that they're continue to do, or the worst things that we do, oil spills and polluting water and air, and all these different things. But collectively, really, that's more of the control agenda that's making those things happen. The elite, or what the Sasquatch they call the lower lords, or the cabal, or there's so many different names that they could go by, but basically it's a lower density consciousness. It's a fear consciousness, that wants to keep us in fear and wants power and control, and agendas of greed and things like that. And so the important message, I guess, overall from the Sasquatch and the star elders, that they are more closely connected to, I'd say, like the council of star elders, because that is where what we've really forgotten is who we are, where we're going, our ancestors, even our past lives, most people don't remember, and we're not meant to remember all the details of them. But so many people are even in denial that there's life beyond Earth, and so it's really, like I said, a consciousness thing in understanding all of that. But to answer your question, I got a little off track there. A little bit further about the connection of all these different beings. They're all connected. So, but some of them have a different level of consciousness. So the star elders that are wanting to help us, the Sasquatch that are wanting to help us, other benevolent beings. There could be, many people feel connected to angels, which is actually a part of like the bird race, the avian people that were here before us. Or some people have, insectoid, like praying mantis guides and things like that. And so all of these were beings that were here on the planet before us, beings that would be considered cryptids. So depending on their consciousness, the dimension that they reside in, or the density that their consciousness resides in, that would be more of the connection. But here on Earth, there's duality always.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think these multidimensional beings, do you think they are here to save us from ourselves?
No. Only we can do that. We're
So
the multidimensional.
you don't think they have in the past or even in the future have avoided disasters, have changed history? See, I am the mindset that humans, for the most part, are a universal species. In other words, we're all connected in some type of humanoid form, and because of that, and because that they seem to show up here a lot, that they're traveling back as evolved humans to kind of change history. Maybe things that they screwed up when they were here before, or vice versa. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it does work that way. But like the teachings that I've received from the Sasquatch, it's kind of much more complex than that. So they're not here necessarily to save us from ourselves. They're not here to save anything, but they do influence, so that we can make these consciousness decisions, use our discernment, and use our incarnation to make changes karmically and dharmically to the whole soul evolution of everything. And so some of these beings, well, okay, let me back up a little bit and say that one of the things that the Sasquatch says constantly, and especially in the message to humanity, they talk about how time and space don't really exist, or how they're not linear in our thinking. And so everything existing simultaneously, which also means all of our existences are all being lived in this one right now. And so whoever Lon was before, many, many different incarnations, your human incarnations, your star incarnations, your animal incarnations, whatever you may have been in the past, and everything that you may be in the future, is all being lived in you right now. And so the only time that really exists is now. And the only time that we have to make effective change, or create anything, that is now. And so that's always true, no matter what time it is, because it's always now. And so these different beings that we work with, when I say spirit guides or ancestors, there's different ways to identify them. And so yes, they do come and work with us to help change a karmic pattern, in this existence, which is going to affect the past and the present. A lot of things is about healing. I talk about karma, and that's not the idea of you reap what you sow. It's not like that. It's an energetic pattern that's set in motion, and so we keep, as humans, we keep following these patterns lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, um, as we experience trauma, basically emotions, um, high emotions, whatever you can think of that makes you feel so overwhelmed within yourself. If you're grieving, or if you're just absolutely in love, or if you are just scared shitless of, I'm about to die, or whatever kind of feelings are so intense within us, that's what affects us. That's what creates trauma within us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this energetic pattern, and it's going to keep repeating itself until we have learned to release that fear and that pattern. And so many people, they don't understand. We come in, there might have been things that happened to us as children in this lifetime that certainly we can relate to and heal and work with. But so much of our karma comes from lifetimes beyond this one, and we can't remember, so we don't understand. But we're going to keep being given the opportunities to heal it, and until it's healed. And so that's why it's so important for us to change our consciousness and our beliefs and our habitual patterns that keep us stagnant and not being able to grow spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we can release all of this, release, even, if you want to look at the world today, so many people think, oh, well, I have to do this. This is my responsibility. The government says I have to do that. My job tells me I have to do this. I got to sign all these papers in order to do that. Yeah, I mean, that those are all human processes that were set up, but you don't have to do any of that to live. None of that's necessary to live. All you have to do is breathe. That's what we do to live. The rest just flows with it. But this is the system that we set up. And so now, karmically, it's our opportunity to get out of the system, to release things, to let go, to heal, and to create a new way of being that where everybody's working together, everybody sees each other as equals.
What is the most effective way for you or the people you work with or interact with? What's the most effective way of getting in contact with these beings?
Well, I'd say probably the best way would be in meditation, going within yourself and connecting. There's many different spiritual practices
Mm-hmm.
that people can do. There's many different ceremonies. A lot of people, if we're going to talk about Sasquatch that are, living out here in the forest, a lot of people want to go out and um, give them gifts and things like that. And there's really nothing wrong with all of that, because all of this opens you up to different things. Of course, there's different tools. People might use oracle cards or something to kind of connect closer. And all of these are good spiritual practices for us to get more in touch with our inner self, or our inner wisdom, or the divine. But for me, anyway, I'd say that the easiest way to really connect with other beings would be within, through consciousness, like I said, through meditation and stillness. A lot of times when they've come to me is when you're in a vulnerable place, maybe the bathtub, or It's often also a lot of times when you don't know what the hell you're going to do next, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
at this point in life and it's just like, it's when you reach this almost point of or surrender or vulnerability. That's a lot of times when our door is open the widest
Mm-hmm.
to to invite those things in.
Um, and I understand that. I get that. I mean, I know how it is with spirit rescue or anything else where you do become vulnerable and things will open up for you, good and bad. But yeah, I was just wondering about that. I mean, are you know when you have do you have drumming circles or something to that effect? I mean, when you get together and you do this with a lot of people, is
Hmm.
it more meditation or is it some type of physical ritual that actually opens up these doorways or gates or whatever you want to use?
No, that's usually done on a more personal, individual level. We do have a lot of gatherings. We have a lot of different sharing circles. I host the Sasquatch family reunion, and just a few weeks ago, we had what we called the Soul Tribe reunion. It's basically the same thing, but yeah, we have drumming circles. We learn dances of universal peace, and we dance together. We have, bonfires at night and we share stories and things like that. We'll do group meditations. And in the past, see, it's a little bit evolving a little bit more all the time too. And so we've had many different workshops where people learn basically different healing modalities, or you might learn more about Sasquatch or ET, or some kind of hear about somebody's experiences. But we've also had so many workshops or group activities that are more interactive, where people are opening themselves up, I guess you could say, to vulnerability in a sense. They're looking at things that they didn't look at before. Having different facilitators guide us in this personal healing journey, because the more that we're able to heal ourselves, the more we're able to heal the world around us. Everything starts within. We can't change the world, but we can change our world. And so that's what our events and activities really promote. And it's such a great energy. Everybody, oh, it's just so loving. Everybody feels like family, and they're just so happy and joyful, and they're in nature. And you could be complete strangers with people, but you know them and you love them, and you're kissing them and hugging them. I mean, you can't help but feel this just amazing energy. And especially when we experience it together, and feel a healing or have some kind of experience. And but we also may go out and look for signs of the Sasquatch in the area and leave them gifts, do a sky watch at night and things like that. So we do fun activities, but it's not in the group activities that you're going to connect so much with the Sasquatch, or other beings, because we've all seen the ships in the sky, we've all seen the orbs, but nothing can compare to your own personal experience.
Have you worked with many people who have had actual physical contact with these beings as a result of the work or meditation you do?
Oh, yes. Yes. A lot of people contact me, initially because they've had physical contact or at least sightings.
Hmm.
And then once they've reached out or learned a little bit more, it's not through my influence so much. I think it's just because they're seeking and the energy is there. But I've had so many people tell me of the physical encounters that started since we connected, or
Hmm.
since they basically opened themselves up to this possibility. So even just having a discussion, even somebody listening right now that has no, concept of anything like this or never had an experience like this. If you want to, if you're open to it, this is planting a seed to allow that to happen. And, so the people that would contact me, they already have this interest. And then, and then very physical things can start happening, seeing them, touching them. A lot of people tell me how the Sasquatch touched them, or different things that they've done. Just 2 days ago, we were out at somebody's property that was showing us all kinds of signs, and said the day before it was either the day before or the day that he was coming to our gathering, and the Sasquatch knew that they were. It was banging on their trailer, not to scare them, but just to, basically confirm that, nothing else is going to bang on it but us, So, it happens quite a bit.
Well, we've got several people who are really taking this to heart in the chat. So I wouldn't be surprised you get some people contact you.
Oh, good. Okay.
What other beings have you come across in this? I mean, have you gotten into any other cryptids like the upright canines, the dog man, the winged humanoids? Has any of that come across in any of your work?
Not so much where I've worked with them personally, but I have definitely seen some very strange things and heard some strange things. And there's some other beings that look different. I wouldn't necessarily really call them a cryptid, but they're beings of different races. So they're humanoid in a way, except they're not human. They have different DNA, but like as far as like the dog-faced ones, some of them, or people kind of put them in the same category with the Sasquatch, just because it's a monstrous hairy beast in the forest kind of thing. And they could possibly be related as cousins in a really loosely way, because there's all these different hybrids, all these different hybrids of beings that have taken place over time. And so the Sasquatch, one thing that they explained is that when they were seeded here as a native species on planet Earth, that the star elders used the DNA from different planets, from different races. One of them is like the Pleiades. So they have a lot of Pleiadian DNA, but their native DNA from Earth came from a giant lemur that was in Lemuria, or in Mu at the time. Obviously, we don't have giant lemurs here anymore, but so some of their DNA was made of that. And so you know what lemurs look like. So some of them can favor that, and then, evolved over time, or using different DNA. Some of them have the more dog face or a baboon face, but they're all really they're different races. And like I said, I have worked, I've worked before with a few insectoid beings, although it was a telepathic kind of connection, not in the physical. But in the physical, I'm positive that I have seen a pterodactyl twice and heard it. Yeah. I can't explain it. I don't know where it went. But
we get a lot of those sightings. We really do. This is something that has cropped up occasionally, more than most people would believe.
Okay.
So, are they crossovers? Are they relics? We really don't know.
Right. And I think in certain areas too, like portal activity or vortex activity is stronger too. So the Sasquatch explained to me years ago as well that, just because of things that I can't even quite explain. Some of it is energetic, and some of it is actually the way that the earth is tilting, and some of it is the way that planets align. Some of it has to do with, portals or ley lines, vortexes along all those things. But they said that there would be many other beings basically being seen by humans or being observed coming through different portals, coming to earth, that humans would observe animals and beasts, or what we would call beasts that we've never experienced or seen before. And so a lot of that's happening as the veil does thin.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a question that who created these beings? Well, I guess that goes back to what is the belief? What do these beings believe? I've had experiencers tell me that there have been non-terrestrial beings who have told them that they also believe in a divine being, a deity, a higher deity,
Mm-hmm.
and that because humans having life force or souls or psychic abilities to be able to reach beyond with our minds is kind of a reason why they like to hang around us. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, in a sense, maybe not put quite that way, but so there is a divine source, great mystery, great spirit, God, whatever word you want to assign to it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a divine light source that we're all, a creator source that we're all connected to. Everything and everyone, everything. The tea in my cup here is connected to it. So everything is. And so yes, and that's where, but humans don't even quite understand or agree with that. And so if we could come to recognize and understand that a little bit more, we'd stand more of a chance. But so many of these beings, of course, they know that they're connected to source, but many of them have different roles that they play. Like I said, as their consciousness evolves, and as they're created, they all have different gifts and abilities and things that they're created for too. Like originally, many of the Sasquatch people, they were created to be carekeepers of the earth, but later on there was these different hybrid Sasquatch races that were created to be basically slaves, to do work and to move mountains, really literally. And so there's all of these different reasons. But to, I guess, answer the question of who created us, of course, it's this divine source we're all connected to, which is a creator energy. But the beings that are most responsible, I guess, for actually tinkering with the DNA to create Kelly to look like this, and to make Lon look like that, and to make my cat a fuzzy little thing, those are primarily one race of beings called like I don't like to even like put it in a category like that because it's more of a consciousness. But the Zeta Reticuli, or the Greys, some of the Greys, those are some of the beings that would be known to be the ones that are the geneticists, that are kind of more of the humanities creators anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not anything solid and foundational either. That's just for the most part, that is how most of those beings would look or identify, but it's all over the board. So there's many different beings that are responsible for different things. Like I said, even some of them, they use my DNA, and I've seen different beings evolved in that. So it's hard to say that it's just one race, but there is a council, so to speak, that does the creation of the bodies that are going to incarnate. However, when we're talking about souls, nobody created our souls but us. And one of the things that is a big, I guess you could say, task for us to remember or to reintegrate is the conscious reproduction. See, we're here on Earth in the 3D, and we have these bodies, and part of the reason we agreed to come here is because, we're like, oh, okay, we get sex and chocolate. Okay, I'm in. So, humans like sex, but we don't do it very consciously. And so we keep procreating without this consciousness factor, without inviting these souls in. And then, these souls have a harder time because they weren't consciously created. And so it's kind of this vicious cycle. And now we're overpopulated. There's really, there's more people on Earth than what Earth was intended for.
And well, I believe that.
Yeah.
So what do you believe? What do you believe is the future for us and these beings? I mean, is there a future for where we're more interactive with each other? Is there something specific you believe is going to happen?
The hope and the intention is that we can be more interactive with each other. But the whole big message behind all of that is that it's our responsibility to do this. They are reaching out as much as they possibly can, but they can't interfere with our free will. They're in a whole different time space continuum and different dimensions and things like that. So they're not really just going to physically walk up to your door and say, hey, pay attention, or trick or treat, or whatever. It's not going to happen in that kind of way, because that defeats the purpose of the direction that we need to move in. That's why we need to change our consciousness about these things. And that's why the message is so urgently important. The Sasquatch said that they don't even reproduce the way that they used to, because it's not safe here for them on Earth because of what humans have done to them in the past, and because of the mindset that we still have, and because of the things that we still do. And but like I said, the intention and the hope for all of it is that we can work, and I don't even like to say the word work, live together in peace and harmony, and join each other all together in this council of star elders. You see the Sasquatch and these different star elders and all these different beings that have a higher consciousness, a higher density. They're still connected to this council. They know who their creators are. They know all these things that we forgot and that we're not aware of. But with their help, we can remember. And that journey really, like I said, it starts within. The answers aren't out there. The answers are in here. You hear about the Akashic records, and that's not some library out there somewhere, but you can go in and explore that library. And so that's what they are really wanting us to do. And that's the hope. And so, yeah, we could all live together here peacefully on this planet once again, like we did before. We did at one time.
I got one last question. Do they have an agenda for us? In other words, is there are they attempting to create a singularity physically and mentally with us?
Well, you'd have to define their agenda, because there's, like I said, there's polarity. There's a total duality going on. So if I had to choose, two sides of an agenda, when really it's unlimited agendas. But if I had to say black and white, one agenda is to spiritually evolve, that would be it, to spiritually evolve, to heal the planet, to heal ourselves, to heal our consciousness, for humanity to evolve. And if we do evolve, we could make our way to a different role or a different status, such as how, like I said, an example is how the bird people that were here on Earth, they evolved, and now one of their bigger roles is to be like guardian angels. They're and so humanity could also evolve to a point where we're able to help the next incarnated race, not necessarily on Earth. This is just the planet of interest right now, because this is the big melting pot. So we could become that. So that's one agenda. The other agenda of really the lower lords is of control, it's their own agenda. You really, power and greed. But even with those agendas, they don't know that it's, they think they're doing what's best. I think all beings think that they're doing what they feel is best. And really, so those are the two bigger agendas. Yeah, one is to evolve, and one is more to de-evolve, or to disconnect us from our consciousness, disconnect us from our feelings, disconnect us from our consciousness, and more or less make humanity as like robots. And I'm saying that really loosely, like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time. And if there's anything that ever comes up that you want to contact me about, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Thank you. And same here.
Well, you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Now, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. Now, I want to again thank Kelly Butterfly for joining me this evening. And thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. Now, if you did make a super chat donation, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes this possible. And please like, subscribe, and share. Now, next week, I will be joined by Claudia Granger, who is a psychic, medium, and soul empath. In fact, several of the individuals in our team have been working with Claudia, taking classes from Claudia. So we're going to cover a lot of this next week on the show. As many of you may have been seeing, on my Facebook page, I've been posting a lot of her interviews and some of her YouTube lectures. So check that out, but definitely join us next week. So until next week, stay healthy and have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Good night.